right, thank you very much, you both. Thank you very much, everybody, for inviting me and for giving me the time to present to you our project, which I hope is going to be of interest to all of you. So a little bit about me first. I don't have a scientific background unless you count social sciences. I teach international relations and international law at Regent's University in London. My PhD is in international relations. Specifically, I was looking at mercenaries and the use of foreigners in armies around the world. So, as you can tell, it's a very different mode of research, although obviously also involving field research and in-person interviews. So right now, most of my day job is teaching and figuring out how to engage my students, who are all university students. Now, 5 years ago, I co-founded Professors Without Borders with two fantastic individuals, with Tessie de Luxembourg and with Magix Walker. And Magix is also an academic in law, and Tessie is, I think, also has a political science and PR background, and is essential to developing our programs with me. So why did we start Professors Without Borders? I used to teach at the London School of Economics in their summer school program, and that's a fantastic 3-week full immersion course that attracts students from all around the world. But it's an expensive course, so we attract students who can afford to do it. And in those 3 weeks, you see them really engaging and flourishing and getting an experience in the education sector that makes them want more. And I found that to be extremely enriching to the students and also to the professors. But it was also limiting because it only attracted the students who could afford it. So what we did with Professors Without Borders initially is to reverse that whole model. Instead of attracting students to the UK, we attract professors from around the world, and we send them to teach the students in their home institution. Now, so far we focused mostly on university students, because I think that the pedagogical approach for university students is one that I'm very familiar with, and I wouldn't say that the students in primary or secondary school need the same things. Ultimately, it's all skills focused, and the objective is to prepare students for successful professional careers through small classes, full immersion, exposure and access to a professor, and we're very activity-led and student-led. It's not didactic lectures. It's not what I'm doing here speaking to you. It's the students getting the teachers getting the students to communicate and be involved in the activity as the key process for learning. So this does a number of things. It creates an experience that would otherwise only be available to students who can afford it. So there's a certain democratization of higher education. Can you still hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yes, and let me know if you need, you told me, right, that you don't have slides, but I can share my screen with the website if you want.
Absolutely, and I'm going to post it also in the chat so everyone has access to it. So I'll do that in a moment. It's not necessary all at the same time. Let me see if I think if you're sharing your screen, though, I can't chat. Is that possible?
No, you can. You need to go bit up.
There we go. I got it. So we call this initiative Professors Without Borders. The reason we chose professors and not anything else is because professors is a word that can be translated into a lot of languages. It can be used in French, American English or English. And this concept is one that is a little bit more universal. So we don't mean just a university professor. When we're looking to recruit professors, we actually are looking for individuals who have expertise and passion, who are able to teach something because they care so much about it, and who share our value of focusing on the students and the students' learning capability. So our teachers go on the ground and they teach students, I'll be honest, it's usually middle class university students because they already have access to university. So they already are in university. And the courses that they teach are quite varied because we consider that the subject is the vehicle for developing the skills. So what I mean by that, If we're looking for students to flourish in a professional environment, we need to prepare them for that environment. And that's something that doesn't always happen in higher education. Skills like teamwork, communications, presentation skills. You might be fantastic at what you do, but if you can't communicate your ideas, if you can't problem solve and work in teams, it's going to be very difficult to be successful and thrive at that first job after your studies. So we try and create experiences for the students to put in practice and build those skills with feedback from the professors, using real-world examples as much as possible. And courses, therefore, just a vehicle. So if you were to look at our selection of courses, you'll have everything from entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, which are actually very popular, communication classes, but also things like cognitive psychology. We had a fantastic course by a professor at Oxford who was teaching for us in Uganda on how do I know what I know. So there's a lot of things that we can teach the students, which will be obviously knowledge driven, but really are student focused to develop their skills and prepare them for the professional world. It's also a sort of reverse brain drain, because instead of attracting students abroad, we are bringing the teachers to them, which means that we are building capacity locally. And I think that's something that's really very important. One of the big failings of higher education is they tend to attract fantastic minds, but then the countries those people come from don't get to benefit from everything that has been achieved by that student. And so by focusing on capacity building locally, we're hoping to empower them within their own environments. This model works because, the summer school model has been tried and tested. You can see that from the London School of Economics. But also because professors, PhD students, professionals, especially the Gen X, millenniums, really like to travel. So they're quite keen to go abroad, to have a completely immersive experience and share what they have to share, which are, I think the two most valuable things are their time and their expertise. Beyond that, however, we also have to be cognizant that a lot of these academic professionals don't have the finances to travel for 2 or 3 weeks. Unfortunately, the education sector in a lot of countries is still underpaid. So in order to attract the best talent, we also raise the funds and pay for their program. So they don't receive a salary, but we cover all expenses regarding accommodation, transportation, their visa, and insurance. So travel insurance and health insurance is covered, which means that the people who volunteer for us and who are selected to go in country don't need to worry about being out of pocket, and can also enjoy that time to do their own research. So it really works with researchers who want to go to a new country where perhaps they don't have an established network. They'll go in exchange for teaching. All their accommodation and flight is paid for, but they also have a base and an on-the-ground network. So for research purposes, it can be really useful. And so it's a benefit, it's a mutually beneficial situation. The volunteers go in, they have an immersive experience, they come out of there having learned so much about a different culture and new teaching techniques very often. The students on the ground get access to a very different set of knowledge and often very different pedagogical teaching style. And also we found that it's been fantastic for building a network for professors on the ground to learn from the professors who are coming in. It's not just about the students. There's a lot of osmosis, and we found that the students we've taught, for example, in Uganda, have come out saying, actually, my teacher has changed since last year because they're asking us more questions. They're trying to be more engaging. Their approach to teaching has been quite transformed. So where are we right now? Right now, unfortunately, nowhere because of COVID. But before the epidemic, we were teaching in Sierra Leone, which is our flagship program, initially in Bo and in Freetown, and now we're mostly in in Freetown. We teach in Uganda at African Rural University, which is an all-women's program that I think is really innovative. In fact, I think they've got a lot of scientific achievements going on there. They obviously do a lot of rural development, agriculture, and the teachers and the students there are just quite impressive. We also teach in Thailand at Srinikaran University. We've been going there, I think it's 4 years now. We teach in India, specifically in Lucknow. And in India, it's also both at all women colleges, in Avad College and in Karamat Hussain Muslim Girls College. So I'd say right now about 60% of our students are women, which I think is a fantastic achievement for development, and says a lot about the demographics of people who are getting education. So that's also quite encouraging. We have also been to Senegal. Thank you to Lecturers Without Borders and Lyubov, who created that connection. And in Senegal, it was a little bit of a different model because we were teaching students in high school, but we were teaching specifically science students. And we decided to teach them, or to give them a course in social entrepreneurship, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you are all the scientists, but what we do share in research is a desire to solve problems. And so what we did with entrepreneurship is looking, especially social entrepreneurship, is looking at problems in the community and figuring out what needs to be done to solve them. And then going beyond that, how to communicate that idea. So how to describe it, how to pitch it. And the students came up with very innovative projects. And we found the same thing happening in our universities in India or in Uganda, where we taught courses that were entrepreneurship based. It really is a very wholesome 360 kind of project. You cover so much and the students' skills are really put to test. So normally in 2020, we were also going to go to Nigeria and Laos. As you can imagine, that has been put on hold temporarily. I'm going to be optimistic and say that we can go in 2021. But in the meantime, I'll have to admit, we have been extremely busy. So while I started by sharing our first project, which is face-to-face, short courses with local partners on the ground, we've also adapted to do more than that. So we have a think tank without borders. So let me send you that link over here. So the think tank project is run by Miriam Ruddy, and it is about knowledge sharing. I'm sure, just like me, you have experienced a lot of paywalls when trying to get access to books, articles, information, and obviously software. So do our partners in different universities. A lot of them can't afford Microsoft. I mean, it's an annual payment, which is quite consequential for a lot of people. However, sometimes all you need to do is point them towards something like OpenOffice. And just by giving them access to free software, it's like opening a door. And it might seem very basic, but that kind of knowledge exchange can go very far. So in our think tank, we publish papers normally around pedagogy or higher education. Personally, we wrote, my favorite is one on the impact of Ebola on higher education in Sierra Leone, which was written by a public health expert who was teaching for us in Sierra Leone. But it was a collaboration between Yano, so the lecturer, and one of the students who she had been teaching in Sierra Leone. So the student also became a co-author, which shows how the partnerships can go beyond just teaching. Think Tank also organizes conferences. So last month we organized a conference on teaching during COVID in higher education. And we had, I think, 7 professors from Colombia to Thailand and 5 university students, likewise from around the world. And they were sharing what works and what doesn't work. And out of that came a report that we published, obviously videos if you want to catch up on the conference. And personally, for my preparation of courses in September, it has been eye-opening. I know I'm going to change a lot of things and be a much better teacher because I've learned from all the people that I was listening to, the students and the professors during that conference. And finally, the last thing that the think tank also does is, in conjunction with the main program, is career development. It's again about knowledge exchange and making information relevant to people freely available. And so if you look at the career development section, and I think you can see it if you go a bit higher, Lyubov, there you go, career development. It's got its own on the right. There we go, career development. And most of these are written by Ellie Danak, who is a career advisor at the University of Edinburgh. And these cover things such as CV writing, how to apply to a job, interview skills, but also online courses for people who couldn't afford to go to university, who want to supplement their education, or whose teachers perhaps are not as inspiring. It also offers information that is specific to each country. So right now we're doing how to look for jobs in Uganda that has been published. We just published the one in India. We have one on Thailand. So specific to each country that we go to. Obviously, the CV writing is great for an Anglophone public, but the same kind of CV wouldn't work, for example, if you're applying to jobs in France. So right now, one of the big initiatives that we're doing is translating the entire website in French and creating career development posts that are relevant to a Francophone audience. And this will open to us so many more students and professionals in Francophone Africa, which is something we really want to do. And then obviously later on, the next step would be to do the same thing in Spanish. And finally, the third big initiative that we're just launching, and I would like to invite all of you to take a look at this because I think in the immediate future, this might be the most relevant to you. If you go to online.proebo.com, we are creating a platform for ad hoc guest lecturers to give courses, during the entire COVID crisis. The reason we created this is because the professors who spoke to us at our conference said that when they invited guest lecturers into their online classroom, the students were more engaged. It fills a knowledge gap where a professor cannot, or perhaps doesn't have the time or doesn't have the knowledge to cover a specific topic. Rather than leaving it out of the syllabus, you can now invite a guest online, they're all volunteers, to come into your classroom for 40 minutes, plus Q&A, and fill that gap. We've been developing this in conjunction with LSE Ideas, with Unilag, who were very supportive, University of Lagos, very supportive in this initiative. And also it's been led by George Richards, who's one of our professors, former professors and volunteer, and works at University of Edinburgh in the United States. So it's really a transatlantic, international initiative, and we're trying to bring as many volunteers as possible who would be willing to teach to students around the world. And it's just one at a time, 1 hour. We're gonna monitor it to make sure that nobody is overwhelmed. And again, it's part of this whole initiative of democratization of higher education, that people can have access to inspiring, outstanding lecturers, that where there's a gap, we can fill it, because at the end of the day, academics share a passion for teaching, a desire to share their research, and an interest in really having an impact and improving the world around them. And I think that's why we created Professors Without Borders, and why you've created your own organizations. You want to have an impact, you want to share learning, you want to inspire and empower students. We do this mostly in higher education because there is a gap there, a very big gap. Universities in a lot of countries could honestly be replaced by Coursera and online learning, but skills building still needs people and still needs specialists. And I think that's something that Professors Without Borders is offering. It's also key for sustainable development, and I think our focus on women being more than 50% of our programs is also key to having a lasting impact in all of the countries that we go to. Finally, I just want to say a few things about the importance of the science community. So I already mentioned that we were organizing courses on entrepreneurship in Senegal for scientists. There is clearly a demand for science experts to share their knowledge around the world. I really like what Lecturers Without Borders have done on their website. I think this access to videos and this displaying teaching which is accessible and making science accessible is fantastic, and I'd like to see more of that in higher education. Right now, for our face-to-face teaching, most of our courses have to be pretty basic because we assume no prior knowledge. It is an introduction to a topic. That doesn't have to stay that way, but often we come to a class and we have to reinvent the entire syllabus because the students might be a lot better than we expected, or we might have a very big variation in learning style. So the teachers are highly adaptive, but right now most of our courses for proebo.com, so face-to-face teaching, are intro classes. However, our online program would allow us to do things a lot more advanced and a lot more specialized and adapted to your particular expertise. I think for PhD students, it's also a great way to get experience in a market which sometimes is a bit overcrowded. I know in London, it's very hard to get a job just off the PhD with no teaching experience. So it can help with teaching experience. It also helps with networking and with advertising research expertise on a platform that I think is going to be visited at least by a lot of other volunteers and hopefully by a lot of our partner institutions. And again, this, all of this is really created to democratize education, to create access to quality teachers wherever you are, and to inspire students and teachers alike. Teachers require inspiration. I think we get our energy off our students, and students who have that kind of experience with their teachers want to learn more. So, it's a synergy that really works, and Professors Without Borders is successful because it has attracted such inspiring teachers and researchers and professionals, because we don't only have teachers. We've also had professionals who perhaps would have liked to be a teacher but went into another profession, but still have so much to share and do that in a way that is very student focused and very giving. So we really appreciate that. So I'm really happy to answer any questions if you're interested to find out more about how Professors Without Borders works, from fundraising to recruiting to why we choose to do certain things. I'm happy to answer that. If you're interested in traveling, networking, and inspiring students, hopefully we'll be going back in. Right now, I'm thinking summer 2021. Realistically, I think is the soonest we can go in. Summer also works because people tend to take holidays at that time, and a lot of universities in the West are shut, but a lot of the ones that we go to in India, for example, or in Thailand are still operational. And if you're interested in volunteering for the online program, I really want to build the science community there. I think there's going to be a huge demand. And we're just getting started. We'll be launching this to the public in September. So, early movers and all that. So thank you very much for hearing me out, and let me know if you have any questions.